To order the Senior Center Building Committee meeting of the March 19th, 2026. And I'm going to read the remote participation open session meeting agenda notice. So in accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, the OML, public bodies otherwise governed by the OML are temporarily relieved from the requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations, quote, through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The public may participate remotely by joining the Zoom meeting at ID 375-414-6055 or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager, at atm@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 100, prior to the meeting. So now that the meeting has been called to order, I take a motion to approve the meeting agenda, which I guess everyone should have. Or if there's any changes to the agenda, do we need to amend the agenda? Anybody? No?
I move that we approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Okay. Moved by Dennis, second by Ellen. Any discussion on any changes to the agenda now that we have the motion in place? No? Okay, hearing none. I have to take the vote, remotely over the. So Ellen?
Aye.
Dennis?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
And Katie?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Ken says aye. So that's unanimous. So we have enough, I think, people to approve the minutes that is the next on the agenda. And first of all, I have to thank Dennis Curran for putting those minutes together and bringing them up to date. So that's a big deal as far as I'm concerned. So the first set of minutes to be approved is from 10/30/2025. Anybody have any comments on the minutes that have been reviewed and whatnot?
So Katie, just to let you know, I got your email and I will make that adjustment when you suggested that the discussion regarding the Friends Committee was not appropriate for this committee's meeting minutes. So I will delete that from the meeting minutes that you have in front of you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, anybody else have any comment on the 10/30/25 minutes as prepared by Dennis? Okay, I'll accept the motion to approve the 10/30/2025 minutes.
Would we have to approve them as amended?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. I move we accept the minutes of 10/30/25 as amended.
I'll second it. Having no further discussion, we'll take an oral vote again. Start with Ellen.
Aye.
Dennis.
Aye.
Dan.
Aye.
Linda.
Aye.
Katie.
Aye.
And the chair says aye, so that is passed. So now move on to the 12/3/2025 minutes. I'll accept the motion to accept the 12/3/25 minutes.
No. Ken, can I ask, is that the one where you wanted the numbers changed? I had put in
Right.
30 instead of 3.
Right, so I was going to amend it to change the guarded amount for a guarded invoice,
Okay.
but
And what should it read?
$3,475 instead of, I think you have $30,000 in there.
Okay.
That was $3,475. So the only thing
Okay, got
changed, the only thing changed on those minutes was an item that a bill amount for guarded.
Yeah.
Any other comment on the minutes from 12/3/2025? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a motion on the minutes as amended for 12/3/2025.
I move we accept the minutes of 12/3/25 as amended.
Second?
Moved and seconded for 12/23. So I'll take a vote from the committee. So Ellen,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Dan Van Skelper,
Aye.
Katie,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Linda, Linda,
Aye.
and the chair says aye. So 12/25, so excuse me, 12/3/25 minutes are approved as amended. So I'll move on to the January 29th, 26 minutes. I mean, I read them. I didn't find anything out of order. So does it, anyone else have any thoughts on the 129/26 minutes? Or any amendments? Nobody? Okay, if there's no proposed amendments and no other comment, I'll take a motion to approve the January 29th, 26 minutes.
I move that we approve the January 29th, 2026 minutes as submitted.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded by Dennis and Ellen to approve the 129/26 minutes as written with no changes. So all in favor, please indicate by saying aye or yes. Ellen,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Dan, Van Skelper,
Aye.
Dave Cyber,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Katie,
Aye.
and the chair says aye. So the 129/26 minutes are approved with no changes. So lastly, the minutes of 2/9/2026 are open for discussion or amendments. So anyone have any amendments or discussion on the 2/19/2026 minutes?
So Katie asked that within the minutes, the scheduling for today's meeting, I neglected to have that it was going to be fully remote. So I
Okay.
will make that change to reflect that what this meeting is fully remote.
Okay, fine. And just to follow up, when we approve all these minutes, they go to the chair, Katie, for signature.
No, I sign them.
You sign them? Okay.
I sign them and then bring them down to the clerk. I sign the hard copy, then bring them to the clerk's office and they stamp them and then post them.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Okay, so any other amendments or changes or discussion on the February 19th of 2026 minutes? Okay, hearing none, I will take a motion to accept the minutes as amended by Dennis for 2/19/2026.
I make a motion to approve the minutes, to accept the minutes of 2/19
As amended.
as amended. Sorry.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Dave, seconded by Ellen, that we approve the minutes of 2/19/2026 as amended. And I'll go around again for the vote. So Ellen,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
that's it. Katie,
Aye.
Bonnie,
Aye.
and the chair says aye. So all 4 minutes are either approved as written or approved as amended, so that we move on to the next item on the agenda. And thank you very much again to Dennis for that work. So the next phase of the meeting is going to be the value engineering discussion. And this is going to be, it may take us a little longer than we think, it may not. And we may get Matt Sturts involved here as well. So the question first by me is going to be, has everyone had a chance to look at that matrix that was sent out to all of us for review? Do we feel comfortable that we've had a chance to look at it, and kind of understand where our comments are and what they have done. So anyone can pipe up. Bonnie, you seem to say you're okay with it. You seem to be nodding.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. It's great. I think it's great.
Dennis,
Yeah, I think it's yeah, I mean I think we understand what we're asking for. Um so
David, do you have a chance to review it?
I reviewed it. It looks okay. I mean, I really didn't see anything that jumped out at me that said we need to fix this right away.
Okay. Others on the committee like Dan Lynch, Kelquick, and Linda.
At this time, I'm good with it.
Okay. And Dan?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so I'll leave it up to Matt now to take it from here. So did I miss anybody in the movement? I hope I didn't.
I looked at it too.
I'm sorry.
Fine.
So the way I understand this to go, Matt, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we have quite a few items here. Some of these items are involved with potential cost savings. And should we go through that as a committee and decide that, we're going to proceed with these, the cost saving ones, and the rest of the comments we'll look at as we get further into drawings and see if they're incorporated in the work, or how would you recommend we take this next step? You or Ryan, either way. I guess
Yeah,
it's-
I'll let Matt speak to it first, and I can add color. So, Matt, if you want to start.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Our first sort of filter in looking at these was to try to identify ones that had cost impact potentially and raise those up to the top to discuss, which we have done. This list here is filtered by things that we thought might potentially have a cost impact. And so some of those items, or actually all of those items, have, as part of this, gotten an initial response from the design team, John and his consultants, in some cases. So yes, it may be helpful to talk about them at least in terms of topically. There are a number of things in particular about the kitchen, some suggestions on potential simplifications to mechanical items. Some of these are already actually we've actually closed them, or they were sort of had a follow-up discussion about them after the comments were initially submitted, because there were a couple of rounds of soliciting feedback from the committee members.
I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that at Matt.
Yeah, go ahead.
The other part that Matt mentioned or alluded to is the working group had a session on this as well. So we met separately as a small group, Katie, Dan, myself, the architect, and Vertex, and we were able to close out a bunch of the comments, that, especially the ones that came from me, I guess. And maybe you can at least run us through the part of the cost impact ones and see how these folks are aware of the things that might be closed. Do you have the latest?
Yeah, he does, and just as he's pulling that up, what I'd like to just add to that is, so we've created the document, which was kind of dumping everybody's comments into one master spreadsheet, and then also filtering through it and trying to parse out what was going to have cost impacts on it. And obviously, our biggest priority right now is assembling the budget, making sure that we are comfortable with where the total project budget is. And so, with all of those comments that came in, if they're while they're not going anywhere, if we're seeing anything as a cost impact of increasing the costs of where we're at right now, we're not implementing, or we're not recommending implementing anything into the drawings, as we're trying to really identify things that are going to help our budget and bring numbers down. As we further into design, we come along with other factors of grants not coming in, other things not working, meetings with the town administrator. We want to make sure that we're as comfortable as we can. So this is more of a financial value engineering exercise here. And as we proceed throughout design, if there are things of wants and needs, we would address that with the design team as we get there.
Okay, so for clarification, at this, I guess what I'm interested in is, how do we get this to the conclusion. So we just do not keep
Yep.
this sheet open. And what's best for the committee to do that?
My opinion would be is for Matt to run through them from a high level. If there are instant questions or concerns that come up, we shout them out and bring them up. But we go through them, we accept them, and then either through the working group or through meetings with our with Catlin and the architects, we put them in and we implement them as well, and we can realize what those savings are.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Just quickly. So I just noticed in the cost impact column, there's nothing in there, right? So I'd like to make a suggestion, if
Okay,
you will, of like classifying high, medium, and low with respect to cost impact, so that maybe we can focus on the high ones first and then, kind of go sequentially from there.
Okay, so Bonnie, what you're saying is that column now just has either the word yes or no in it. You'd prefer to see a dollar value or something that is more related,
Yeah,
value of the work?
yeah, maybe. I don't know how hard that would be to do.
Some of that is spelled out I think it was distributed as an attachment, maybe in the slides that were delivered to the select board on Tuesday night. It just
Oh.
throw some dollar values at some of these items. Just a thought that we've started to do some of that.
Can someone pop that up on a screen share? I think that might make it easier, that particular slide.
Brad, do you have that handy, or do you need me to try to grab that here?
You should grab it, meaning Matt.
All right,
And
give me
then
just one second.
Has his hand up as well. For comment.
So while he's doing that, I guess if we could clarify, this is my first rodeo here. So it's been my understanding that once the construction documents or the bidding documents that are used for to put it out to bid, once those are finalized, it is not recommended that changes be made. That is, we need to know. It seems like we need to have a lot of information prior to John completing the construction documents in order to make sure that we have as few change orders as possible. And how do we make that happen?
Oh, I think I'm just going to comment, then I'll leave it up to Matt to come back or Brian or John. But I thought this step here was a first step of maybe two steps that we would do as much as we can here to get this list out so everyone had a chance to comment. Then we'd reduce this list to much smaller than it is by closing out the items. That would give us a smaller list for the architect and for us to consider as the potential changes in the construction documents. Make any sense to that? So I guess, I don't know if we can hack this out in a meeting is what I'm getting at, this whole list. But can we at least start to close the cost impact ones or not? That's like, how many pages have we got here for cost impacts? 3?
I've just hit the screen share button. Can folks see what I have up? This is from the select board presentation. And Brian, I don't know if you want to run through some of these items and because I know that you had gone through the estimate in evaluating some of the potential here.
Sure. So before Katie's presentation with the select board, she was asked to try to put a rough order of magnitude on what we had on here. And this is some of the things that we identified through that VE process without having official recommendation from the board or from this building committee about some things that we identified that we thought we'd be able to take in order to start driving down some of the costs on our estimate from a construction standpoint. I did put the values in here. Some of these are educated guesses. Some of these are taking from the estimate from AM Fogarty and deducing what those numbers came from. And so, for example, the first is the soil disposal fee savings of $100,000. This is per conversations that we've had with our DPW director and our working groups, understanding what was put in the estimate for disposal of soils on site, and that we'll be able to accommodate some sort of spot and minimize the amount of fees that was going to come with disposing of those soils. I think that the original estimate was well over was it well over 400 grand that we had there, or it may have even been higher than that. So conservatively, we put $100,000 on there for savings. We had a site cut savings on here per the estimate that was in from AM Fogarty. We did have a separate number that we had looked at on it. There was quite a discrepancy on the site cuts. I think the site cut from AM Fogarty was around $150,000. We were hoping to maybe create some savings there with the cut.
Oh, Brian, can I ask, what is the site cut?
That's for elevation of where the building is going to sit
Yeah.
at the end of the day and what the elevation currently is right now. So it's a matter of material that needs to be removed in order to get the building and foundations where the building's going to sit from an elevation standpoint.
I see. Okay.
Stone veneer cap and flashing duplication, we had that as an add alternate in the specification. It was also carried in the main scope as part of the estimate. Stone veneer was around $87,000. There was a cap and a flashing that was also as part of that. I added and rounded to around $95,000.
Are we maintaining some stone veneer, or are we getting rid of it all?
So what we have currently right now, Bonnie, is that would remain as the alternate that we have in the estimate. So
Okay.
it's not being carried twice.
Yeah,
Okay.
if the money's
Okay.
available, it would be taken, but it's an add alternate kind of down the list, so that may or may not end up in the project.
Okay.
I kind of like the stone veneer.
I don't.
I don't.
Yeah, it's all in the eye of the beholder.
Exactly. I like the way Wilbraham looks.
Hmm.
It adds a little.
We can
All
we
right,
can
well,
debate
we
this
can-
later. We'll debate
We
it
can hack
later.
it out, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay. I'll just make one mention. The siding that comes down to the ground is a cement board. And the reason why they often do stone, and it's in Littleton too, is that there's a sidewalk that goes around the building currently, and there's a lot of shoveling and snow blowing or what have you. That stone veneer actually protects the building. That's why it's there. And besides aesthetics, I think it looks good.
Mhm.
Okay.
It doesn't. That's okay.
Okay.
One thing to
Yeah.
say about it as an alternate is that whether you prefer it or not as part of the aesthetic of the building, it involves a single trade, which is masonry, and items that involve a single trade are often simple to add or subtract, and thus are good candidates to be bid alternates.
Okay.
Good point.
That's-
Thank you.
Good. That's good to know. Thank
That
you.
is good to
Yeah,
know.
it sounds if it protects the building, then it might be a good thing to have as an add alternate.
Just to go through some of the other smaller items that I had put on here, we had there is some back and forth in our working group in regards to what we're doing around the perimeter of the driving as it pertains to granite curbing, vertical granite curbing, and how things would be paved. We had about $95,000 in vertical granite curbing. We understand that if something does get reduced in areas that maybe aren't high trafficked or aren't high plowed, that will need to be replaced with something. And so we put a small number on there. That's something that would need to be worked out between the town and the designer to identify areas that could reduce some of the cost with granite.
Yep.
Other smaller items, we had a unit paver reduction. This may not come to fruition as we go through the options of what could be used. This is something we may have used in a previous job that thought we could use something else. I think that still needs to be fleshed out in our working groups, but could potentially save around 15 grand. There was also a question about the site sign. Currently, the estimator's carrying around $25,000 for that. Maybe there's another option where we reduce the what the specs are out there and create a less expensive sign.
Brian, can I ask, is that the permanent sign for the building, or is that the sign that's put up during construction to give everybody credit?
Permanent.
It's a permanent sign that's on the street.
And they have how much now? 20, that's a hell of a sign.
25,000.
Are you saying you're not going to keep the credit sign for us up there permanently after the building opens?
Well, No, I would certainly love to see it, but not at $35,000.
Yeah, that's a rather generous number, but understand that that's the same sign you probably saw in Wilbraham, the sign out on the street. It's the same sign.
No,
Okay.
this is
I
much,
don't remember it, but all right.
Excuse me?
it's bigger.
Ken?
This proposed sign is bigger.
No, it's the same.
Okay.
It's absolutely the same.
How big is it?
I don't know, it's maybe 5 feet high by 6 feet wide. It's
Pretty big.
well, you got to be able to read it, guys.
Okay, let's move on.
Driving by in a car. Yeah,
Some other items
we'll
have
give you
come
an
up.
We'll give you.
Just based on some of the comments that we gathered from everyone in the committee. There were some mechanical questions in regards to certain areas being heated with certain fan coils, whether or not a substitution for unit heaters in potentially non-trafficked areas could be switched out. I put a small reduction to something that maybe the mechanical engineer could be put in there for 10,000. These two, the last two items, these are something that I brought up, and these are fairly common in value engineering exercises, is looking at the overall scope for what we have for both plantings and for architectural millwork and putting a goal of a reduction of a small percentage, whether it's 5 or 10%. This would be at the purview of the director and I think of the working group to identify maybe areas that either there's a reduction in millwork or maybe does not need full architectural millwork and could be procured through some sort of an FF&E package if it's not going to be highly trafficked or affect the aesthetics of common areas. So ultimately, those that I given to Katie for the presentation added just north of $300,000. We also wanted to identify to the board that now that we have the bids in for our utility projects, we were currently budgeting $1 million for all of that. With the two bids that we had received, I believe we're roughly around $700,000 between the two. We understand that there's still some work that's going to need to be bid out for the clearing. Dan is working on procuring that. The hope is that we still are able to realize some savings on that $1 million number. We put a round number of $150,000. That will start to realize itself as we get further into design, and Dan gets a sharper point on exactly what that cost is going to be for clearing.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So I want to throw a question out to the committee. So let me go back to Matt Sturts, please.
Yep.
The working group, the way I understand it, the working group, and from what I remember, I should say, we closed quite a few items in the working group.
We did.
You haven't had a chance to put that on this matrix yet.
No, as we were working through that, I made a few notes of what we had closed on the way through, and I have that document that I can pull up now to go through the items that remain open or that we had flagged for discussion. If that was actually going to be my suggested next step to
Good.
take this list
That would
and
be good. But what
So
I'm
this-
trying to do is, I want to make sure the committee is comfortable with the fact that the working group did some separate work on their own and tried to close some of these items. And it was primarily myself, Katie, Dan Skelquick, and Vertex, and John Catlin working on that. So I just want to make sure the committee understands that they're comfortable with what we closed. Some of it's real easy. So Lorraine?
I have a question. Will we be able to tell today what exactly we have in add alternates as opposed to the building, itself? That
we can have a pretty good handle on it. I mean,
Yeah, but I don't think we'll have a precise, mainly because as we get the final estimate, we'll look at the add alternates with you as a committee and prioritize them. And I think as Brian said, we'd like to keep them limited. I think 5 or 6 add alternates. You might go a little bit more than that, but that's asking a lot because contractors get kind of bogged down in that.
That's a good point, John. So one thing that we will need to do as we identify our alternates is we'll need to have a vote of the committee on what the priority is, because when we bid the project, we will need to take those alternates in order on bid day.
Ellen, are you satisfied with that?
Pardon?
Yeah,
Ellen, I'm asking Ellen if she's satisfied with that or she had some other comment.
No, I guess that'll work. I mean, how soon do you think we'll be dealing with that though? Because John said not until after we have the estimate.
April.
The,
It'll be April.
okay.
We get the final estimate mid to late April. We'll have 100% or 90% estimate. And at that time, he'll have more accurate numbers on the ad alternates, the optional ad alternates. And then I think the committee will sit down and hash out what's important in the list, prioritize it.
Yeah, that works for me.
I thought that we were going to get 60% on the construction documents in June.
No, it's closer than that.
No, we're going to be 100% on the documents in April.
Well, that's great news. I took that off of our schedule. So if it's ahead of schedule, that's even better.
Yeah, the documents are moving ahead. The one holdup, as Dan V was bringing up at our working meeting, is that getting the final approval from the bureaucrats at the state level might not be till August. And I think Ken and I were talking about the fact, will that actually impede, would it possibly stop the project? If it could stop the project, we don't want to bid it early, but we could bid it earlier. And I think Brian and Matt might comment on that. We might be able to bid earlier. I'm just, I'm concerned about where the economy is going. Right now, we're in a pretty good position, but, this crazy stuff in the Middle East could really stick something in our spokes.
The next item on the agenda is going to be the schedule. So let's kind of finish up the value engineering. So is the committee satisfied that the update we gave, the select board update was actually coming at the end, but we're going to do it right now, I think, because this is what we gave for the select board update. And for anyone who doesn't know or wasn't there, that we had no questions and no comments from the select board, the Zoom people, or anyone in the room. So it was a very clean presentation by Katie. So I think it's good that we got this list to start with here, and then this list I'm hoping will expand as we get further and further along, and potentially, look at other things we can potentially save $1 on, or things that might impact the budget and go up.
But but given the new timeline, does that need to be completed by mid-April? I guess I'm confused on John saying that we're well ahead on construction documents and it'll be in April and not June, and you saying that we can continue to add to the list of potential.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What I should have said is, as we go through the process, Vertex will then determine if we need to add or subtract some items from this list. I guess that's a better way to put it.
And the help with Dennis was saying, the drawings are well on their way. They're going to be completed. They can sit and wait completed until we're sure we're comfortable with the permits before we go out to bid. And while they're sitting completed, there may be an issue that might come up that we might want to look at and make an adjustment on. That'll give us more time. If you push it right out to the edge, right now we've always been, our team has always been on a schedule of April with a bid in May. But depending upon some of this environmental stuff, it's really important that we don't get contractors on board until we're absolutely sure. I think, as Brian brought up at the last meeting, you can hold a bid for a little while, but you can't hold it, 30 days would be max we'd like to do. We've done 60, but it's really uncomfortable.
I have a question. Ken, it's Ellen. Here where we're showing plus on the top line, where we have 15,730,000, it says plus 565. 247. Is that meaning that we're currently that much over budget from what the town gave us? Because I know there's a contingency that if we want to only ask the town for 10 million for the taxpayers, right? But we can get the additional 1.5 million from the taxpayers if we don't get enough grants or get enough fundraising or whatever. So what does this mean? I mean, if we're looking at the 305,000 plus 150,000, that's 455,000. Does that mean we can subtract that from the 565
Yes,
that we're
Yes.
over?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, but then we're still over by what? 100?
So,
Approximately 115,000? Is that
Correct.
correct?
And that's what we're working on right now. And to give some clarity, because of a meeting that I did have with our town manager, our goal is to borrow the $10 million, and there is also separate different funding sources that we have that we're tracking with it. The added buffer for borrowing was explicitly there in the event that that the CDBG grant does not come through at this point. And so there's a little bit of a, if it's one or the other type of a deal. And so that's how we've structured our kind of total project budget. So these numbers that we've shown here, we're trying to get that number down with the overages that we're showing right now. We understand there's a lot of other irons in the fire as it comes to other grants and other potential funding sources that we have, inclusive of donations and fundraising. But we're also going to be working on some other things in order to try to get our budget as a whole down. And it would leads me to one other item that we have with the documents being as far along as they are. We may be in a position now to go out and get some preliminary quotes for furniture that's going to be in that building. And that will put a sharper point on some of our soft costs that we have and potentially find some realization in savings on that as well.
Okay, so at this point in time, we're pretty much unchanged on the total project cost at this point in time, just rough figures. John is going to emphasize that we really don't know exactly where we stand until we actually go out to bid. But between now and then, we're trying to determine ways that we potentially could save, and we're looking at the fact that some funding may come through and some funding may not come through. So that's was just kind of moving along, trying to stay where we are at this point in time. That's the way I see it.
Okay.
Okay, so Matt and committee, is it important for us to go through the list that Matt has got showing us things that are closed? How does everyone feel about that?
Happy
Sounds
to
good.
pull that up. Great, I'll do that. Just
Okay.
making sure folks can see the Excel file on my screen. I was going to edit this live while we're doing this.
Brave man.
Yeah. So I'll go through these. Some of them are were already closed, so I actually hid those rows. But one thing that we had talked about was the possibility of, I think, simplifying the envelope. And these were Ken comments about possibly eliminating a couple of windows. We talked about that, and we closed that among the working groups. I don't think that's something that we were thinking we were going to pursue. One thing that was open was about APAC and can we provide space and electrical as required for APAC in storage room 122 off the multi-purpose room. So that was something that we identified if there's a space requirement that there might be a cost impact associated with, and wanted to bring that forward to the committee for discussion. I don't know if there's any more you want to say about that, Ken. This was one of your comments.
I just leave it now, and when we get to there's another discussion with APAC that's not for tonight, but the important thing to me here that I brought this up was that we need to put on the final drawings, at least some electrical requirements in that room that doesn't have electrical. It's a minor change, I would think, for John's team to do that.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? I don't have the drawings in front of me, but we had sort of talked about having that closet be on the, like if you're looking at the plans, the left-hand side entrance into the multi-purpose room. I just wanted to make sure that was not the wall that the general donation plaque was intended to be on.
No, there's already a door to this room that we're talking about. Comes in, it's basically the big storage room off the multi-purpose room, just carving out a spot for a desk for them to work at and some power.
I thought we had talked about him being able to enter that door through the hallway instead of needing to go into that room.
We can change that if that's, the main thing is just to make a provision that get some electrical, we can decide on the layout. So
We'd also work with him. He might want to pick a different spot. We want to work with him to make sure that he's comfortable where we're going to put him.
yeah,
There
that's
are
fine.
lots of options.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is still open is what we're getting at, and
Mhm.
we can see we have to work on it.
And just to jump in, the intention, what we're going through here, I don't know if the committee has the appetite for, are we going through every line item here of what we're going, or is this going to be cost impact for people to kind of chime in on?
I had been planning to go through the top part of this list that is just cost impact items that were also still open. So
Yes.
that's like
Okay.
maybe 30 or so items. I think it's going to be manageable.
Okay.
Let's see, that was closed. Parking lot walkways. So this was sort of getting back to what Brian was talking about, and that we were discussing as part of sort of general site reductions that were identified on the select board slide about possibly making some of that an alternate, whether that's curbing, walkways, but we had talked about the possibility to put in something lesser and then be able to add, I think granite curbing was the alternate in this location.
Yeah, so
Working group.
this is gonna need another discussion. I say we keep it open, but I like the idea that you put the cost saving in there. We'll work on trying to figure out a way to get the cost savings. John is totally opposed to us changing those islands down the middle and taking away those islands for people to walk on towards the building. And, you know, that's his position. So we're gonna have to determine as a committee if we see another way to make any changes on that. But
So
Just
can I
to
ask?
chime in on that.
So
Yeah,
it would be
go
helpful
ahead.
to take a look at the Target parking lot in Leominster. That's your preferred, Ken, that's your preferred or Katie's preferred?
no, what we're talking about is the difference between no raised. This particular item was brought up by Katie and myself, I believe, that there are raised areas down the raised islands down the middle which separate the cars, like 4 feet, 5 feet wide. They're granite curbed and they have a concrete surface. There's 3 of them. Plus the rest of the site, as pointed out by Vertex, we could potentially look at a different kind of a granite slope, granite curb rather than a more expensive granite curb.
So if I go to the Target parking lot in Leominster, I will see your preferred solution.
No, my preferred solution was what we saw up in Wilbraham, but the direction of the walkway is 90 degrees from the direction of these walkways. They're just striped. These areas are simply striped. They don't have the curb and they don't have the concrete surface.
Yeah. Now, if I can chime in for a moment.
Right.
The real issue here is that the one in Wilbraham, nobody walks along it because it's not taking them anywhere. On this parking lot, which is much larger, the walkways are the ways in which the elder, let's say with a walker or what have you, walk safely between the cars to the front of the building. And what happens is that if you don't have that, they're walking out on the parking lot. And maybe at Target, that's not a problem. But here we have our average age is about 70. And we go from 65, let's say, up to 90, 95. This is a safe place to walk. Cars cannot move into that space because the curb is there. It's for safety only and access from a fairly good distance if you park out far. So in all of our centers have that arrangement. In Wilbraham, we don't go front to back, we go side to side. If you go to Longmeadow, you'll see that. And actually every other project that we've done has the curbs for safe passage. That's the idea. It's safety.
And we don't have we don't know what the cost difference is, Stefan.
Well, it's if you just pave it and paint it, the cost difference is pretty substantial. But understand that we're doing this for safety. for the welfare of the seniors walking to the building. That's a very important part. And we do that because we've had problems in the past from previous centers that we've learned from, that this issue is an important one. Also keeps people from driving over the space into the car across from them too, or hitting a pedestrian.
So my recommendation here is that when we find an item like this that's still probably unresolved, we get to a list of the ones that are open and do that later in another meeting. Even if we have to have a separate meeting just for that small.
Yeah.
All
right.
I feel I would need to see some illustrations.
Absolutely.
of this. You know, it's very hard for me. I mean, certainly I think that safety of our people and the parking lot is going to be one of the areas that's, you know, the most potential for problems, particularly the weather here. I mean, sometimes you're going to be dealing with rain, sometimes snow or sleet. So I think safety is really critical. So I don't feel like I can make a decision right now.
Right. And I think what needs to happen here is using satellite views of other parking lots that John has done, we can show you in the satellite views on another meeting. And we have the site plan. So the way it's going to go at this particular point is that the site plan that's been drawn by John is it's going to the planning board. We're going to show it this way when we go in. If we have to amend it later or make a change, we'll amend it later. But we have to move.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good one. We need more clear illustration of what we're talking about here, so people can understand it.
The note that I made in the matrix, if folks can see that, is pending review of photo examples. I think that's going to be key to understanding what we're talking about here.
Okay, good.
Right.
But I think as in terms of selling the building to the public, if at the end of the day we decide that the safety, trumps the additional cost, I think being able to say having the parking lot done this way was substantially more expensive than a cheaper alternative, but it gives us a higher level of safety so that, the select board or, some town, or the finance committee, well, they needed to spend the extra 200, whatever it is, $100,000 on this rather than that. So it kind of shows that our due diligence has resulted in what is perhaps more expensive for the town, but it's a better choice.
Okay. Next item, Mr. Sturts.
All right. We had a few that were closed. And then we had a note on here about plans may require updates subject to the permitting that is ongoing related to MISA, MIPA, et cetera. So that one is not something we can resolve right now unless we get further guidance on that. I don't know, Dan, if you want to make any comment about that. I do see that there's a permitting update on the agenda. We can talk about this there if you want.
Yep. Let's do it there.
All right. So then we had a few items here. These are all flagged in the light blue, which is coordination to be addressed in the construction documents. So some of this is coordination that just hasn't happened yet because we're only in DD and is a level of detail that you typically would coordinate as part of the construction document phase.
That's good.
So these are all open and say will be addressed in CDs for that reason. We talked about the generator, and this was a comment actually that was made in a couple of different places. So you'll see a couple of areas where I've highlighted this one in yellow because a couple of people made the same comment. So we talked about the generator needing to be in the base bid of the project. That was a decision that was made. So that's a closed item. We don't need to dwell on that. Masonry, we talked about this. This is about that masonry water table that we talked about being a good candidate for being a bid alternate. So unless there's any further discussion on that, that's the way that I think we left it in this matrix.
So that should be closed, right?
If
that the
folks would like
veneer?
me, that's a discussion. If folks would like me to close it, I can do that.
Is that the veneer you're talking about or some
Yes.
other masonry?
Yes,
That's the
Okay.
same item. I think that's closed.
it can be closed. I think we've talked about that earlier in the meeting. I will close that here.
Okay, thanks.
Now, that says that it's in both the base bid and as an alternate. Are you correcting that to just an alternate?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it was duplicated accidentally in the initial estimate. So
Okay.
we corrected that and it's only going to be carried as an alternate.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see, that was closed. We have a couple items here that were related to the kitchen. And Dave, thank you for the extensive review on these and the input on the kitchen. So there's a couple of items here, I think maybe 10 or 12 that were pertaining to adjustments to the kitchen layout.
This is going to be one of the most important things that we do and how we resolve this. And the committee's going to have to be on board, I guess, if there's a price increase here, which I think Mr. Catton thinks there is a price increase. So I'm inclined to have this again as almost a separate item for an hour discussion by the committee in another meeting, maybe a separate meeting with these open items, because this is a lot. The kitchen's a lot.
So when would we need to have the kind of finalized kitchen design? I know that, and again, Dave Cyborg, thanks very much for all the hard work you put in on the kitchen. When would we need to have a finalized kitchen design done? By the middle of April?
John,
How about the end of this month?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it needs to be sooner than later. The issue with the kitchen is it involves MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, equipment, some design issues, although I think, listening to Dave and working out some of the issues, I think we're able to integrate the design into the existing building. So we're not changing any of the footprint or enlarging, like adding a refrigeration unit outside the building, which increases the size of the building. So we would like to be able to keep that. And I think we got a pretty good plan for Dave. I haven't heard feedback yet from him. I think we did, because we added in another reach-in refrigerator. And then there's a lot of items which we talked with Katie about too, that could be FF and E. They're more surface mounted. So right now, we would have to have a decision on that. I do not have my engineers engineering this. The hood increases in size, the Ansel system increases, the heating system for the makeup air increases in size, and then we would be adding in the freezer and walk-in refrigerator unit. And we've asked our electrical engineer to review the power requirements that might be there, because we'd be going electric on the stove if that's the process, electric on the hot water heater, and the increased power for the hood and the refrigeration units. If that pushes us over a certain amount, our electric room may not be large enough, and it may require a double door system because of the size of the service. We're looking into all those aspects. I'm hoping to have an answer to that probably late next week in terms of power requirements. That's kind of where we are.
Mm-hmm.
We'll
since-
have a cost estimate related to those things. Are you waiting to bundle that with the pro cost estimate, or will we have a look at the difference between kitchen and drawings?
Yeah, so far we've talked to 2 different kitchen suppliers, and we've not gotten any answers back, but I believe we will. And I think Ken gave us another kitchen person, I think in Lowell or Lawrence. And we're reaching out to them too. And we're giving them the copy of the plan along with the kitchen equipment, both plans, and give an idea of the difference. the real issue might come down to power and mechanical systems, not so much the equipment.
Mhm.
Okay, so since I'm the chairman and since this is a touchy issue, do we want to have a discussion about whether we agree that we need to make these changes according to what Dave Seibo has recommended? And how strong is Dave Seibo's thoughts here that we make these changes? So we need Katie and Dave, I guess, to lead us here because this is going to be a cost impact for sure. Do we want to talk about it tonight? Do we want to think about it longer, or how do you want to respond?
Well, in my view, the kitchen has always been, that is, the ability for the town of Ayer to have an active and engaged meal service serving 30 to 40 meals at lunch and, potential for 125, let's say, or 150 at a large, 6, 7 times a year. That has always been, in my view, one of the fundamental purposes of the building. And I think that the kitchen needs to be designed as a working kitchen that will be used frequently to provide meals. It's not meant, nor in my view, was ever meant to be a mere showplace. So whatever we need to do to make it a functional kitchen that can do what, Katie and her staff will need to do is fine with me. I think it is a fundamental part of the building.
But there's no misunderstanding that it's a functional kitchen, even the way it was originally designed. Because
The problem with the original design is there's nothing there to work with. There's no mixers. There's no kettles. There's you've got a stove. That's it. If you need to make
refrigeration
mashed
was
potatoes or cake mixes or something, you still need something of a decent size to be able to mix these things and process them.
I think Dave's got a very good point, and Dennis does too. I did reach out to Wilbraham, and I think I copied a few folks on it. They do 30 to 50 meals every day, and every week they do 125, one major meal for 125 people.
Right.
That's out of the kitchen they have there now.
But they don't cook their meals there. Their ASAP comes in and brings prepared meals and serves them out of there. They're not cooking in that.
I'll verify that with Paula. That's not what she told me, but good point. It's a commercial kitchen.
I have a question about this outdoor refrigerator.
That's not going to happen.
Isn't that something that got added on, and what is the rationale for that?
What was there's no outdoor.
It's no longer outdoor. We fit it into the the pantry area.
So if I may too, as part of this, and I will not pretend to be an expert on either side, a kitchen expert but the exercise that we're doing for VE here is because of where we see our budget currently. And just to advise here, when there are comments and we're making ads, which may be valid, that may come with added or additional cuts that need to be made or other decisions that need to be made at this point. And so as we make our way through, I think, Ken, you're right, that it kind of speaks to a bigger point of potentially looking at this holistically of a kitchen and seeing where we sit as we shake out from this VE exercise to see what or if anything can be added into this at this point.
Okay.
Well, and that's where I'm really looking to see a more accurate cost estimate, because if the added cost is all in the is mostly in the MEP, it's a different conversation than whether it's in the equipment itself. Yep. And without the cost estimate, we don't know that. And, I have a donor who's interested in sponsoring the walk-in refrigerator. If we go that direction, that helps to not put us in the situation, Brian, that you're just bringing up.
Yep.
But if the main cost is in the MEP, well, then that's a whole different situation.
Okay, so let me take it here just to John for a minute. Is there a way, John, this is for John, is there a way to detail, and I think you're going to tell me it's the stove, but I'll leave it up to you to tell me, what would be the material change that would impact the MEP part of it? It's not going to be pots and pans. It's not going to be a mixer. It's going to be some other change in layout. So maybe we have to decide what, if that material change is valid, is something we have to consider, rather than just what fits in the kitchen and what we work with the tools in the kitchen.
Well, I think Katie brought up a good point, and Dave has been reinforcing it in terms of how we want this kitchen to function. Most of our kitchens do function as full service kitchens. However, this is not a very large multi-purpose room. To give you an idea, that in not Long Meadow, but in Holyoke, we have a 4,000 square foot multi-purpose room. We service probably 150 to 200 meals a day. That's a full, massive kitchen. They don't have a lot of cake mixing things going on, but they do have full walk-in refrigeration and what have you. What was discussed today with the cost estimator was something that was a little bit new for me, that the larger stove and the hood requirements are mechanical costs that I had not really contemplated. And also our electrical engineer, this is a two-pronged thing. We have the other issue is that Katie's looking at getting CDBG money, which requires this thing to be 100, and Ken looked into this too, 100% electric. Well, our service already jumped from what our normal buildings are, about 800 up to 1,000 amps. And that's because of the requirement by the state to have charging stations outside. And now that we're looking at an all-electric interior, which means that the stove, the hot water heater, and if we do the fireplace, we may eliminate the fireplace because of this. That adds a lot more power to it, and she's trying to work that out right now. We discussed that today with her. So I think that we should probably table this whole discussion until we get more firm numbers back, so that Katie and Dave and the working committee and ultimately this whole committee can make a decision. And we don't have that answer right now. There's a lot of things at play here. So I really think it's great that we can find somebody who would donate money for the walk-in refrigeration. We may want that no matter what. You know, it's just really a nice thing if somebody wants to pay for it. So I think we need to leave this. I think Ken was hinting at this, that we need to have another discussion at another time. We might be here till midnight trying to work this one out. So that's my take.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And that's how kind of I opened it. This particular piece of work is going to take a separate meeting with only a few items on the agenda. This particular piece, the kitchen, and a few other open items. And then, because this is just too extensive, there's too much that's unknown. Your Vertex can comment.
In my opinion, too, Ken, I think maybe this is an exercise for the working group, but it's got to be dedicated strictly to the budget. And I think we need to collectively, as a working group, agree on things that are realized for savings here and kind of reset where we are right now and our comfortability about our total project budget. And then at that point, we're able to assess, hopefully we have some firm numbers, what things are as it pertains to this kitchen and these other ads. And then hopefully at that point, we make an educated decision on how these are going to be attacked.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the committee, but if we meet as a working group, we're going to obviously have to have Dave come that day and join us. Not just the normal working group, but Dave will have to be part of that discussion. And then does the committee feel comfortable that the working group would work the majority of it out and come back with a recommendation to the committee, and then you guys can make the final comments and just go around?
I think that to John's point, the electrification of the building, while there may be additional costs associated with that, it also I puts us in line for some substantial grants from National Grid, because the building is now eligible for energy saving credits or whatever they're called, which would potentially offset the entire cost of the additional to the kitchen. So I think that needs to be, that is we're adding expenses to the kitchen, but it makes us eligible for increasing grant funds, or at least that's my understanding.
I'd take it in two parts. I'd resolve what we really need in the kitchen first, then look at the National Grid, a mass save system secondly to that. But in that, working on that separately. So I think the original meeting should be set up with the working group, with Dave, with Katie, and determine exactly what we're going to settle for in the kitchen design, and then take it from there.
My only other comment with grant incentives like that is you don't realize that cash till after the project is completed, after substantial completion, and then you get your check at the end of the day. And so we would still need to be comfortable that we are able to appropriate those funds first in order to receive that reimbursement.
No,
Yeah,
I understand. And if, and again, if that means that we would need to dip into the 1.5 contingency in order to borrow the money and then repay it when we get the check from National Grid, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, okay. Do we all agree that this needs to be a separate meeting with the working group and then come back to the committee? Bonnie, how do you feel about that?
I agree. Yes.
I agree.
So Linda, any comment? Ellen?
I agree.
I agree, but I think our time frame is very short. We have to have this done by the end of this month, correct? If that's what I heard John say.
Should be done in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
Next working
I
group
second Linda's sentiments.
is the next working group next Tuesday? I think it's next Tuesday, right?
Believe so.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we'll be Tuesday, and we'll put it on the agenda for Tuesday.
What time?
It's what do we meet, 1 o'clock?
1 o'clock, yep. Okay, there is quite a bit to unpack as part of the kitchen comments here. I
It's
think
the
that's
big-
probably advisable to
Just move right through that part, if you
be
would.
standalone, yep. We had a few comments on code and fire alarm that were closed.
Right,
Move past those. As far as site items, I think actually, wait a minute. That was the end of things that we had flagged as cost items. I see we're now into comments that we had started to go through and that we had determined were actually not cost items, which is what these notes are. So I think actually that was all of the things that were cost items that required sort of more discussion with this group, because now we're getting into things like this, mechanical items to be confirmed at CDs.
all right, so it's my understanding that what we're looking at for this meeting did not include those darkened sections that you've added subsequent to the working group putting together their comments. Am I right about that? So you've bracketed where you have things closed, you've got it bracketed. For instance, this one, after discussion will be eliminated and so forth. So based on what we closed tonight, it would be proper, I guess, for you guys to supply that revised
Reissue this. Yep.
to the committee. Am I right about that?
Yep, I can do that.
And then we'd all have the items that are open still under cost impact, and we'd see the items that have been closed under cost impact. And the rest of the document we'd have to review on our own to see how those comments are going to land somewhere else, either in a CD or in a revision, or they're done, one or the other is what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
Is that good with everyone on the committee? We want to move on to the next item on the agenda, if that's fine.
Okay.
Okay,
Great. I'll stop sharing and I'll.
okay, so
Yeah.
thank you for that. That's,
Yeah.
there's a lot of work in that section, obviously. So now we have lead environmental expert, Damian Skelquick, on the agenda, but I don't see him on the screen, if I'm mistaken.
I think he dropped off a little bit ago. He might have had another meeting.
Oh, okay. All right, so the next item on the agenda at 5:10 is the project schedule updates. And it's way beyond 5:10, I'm afraid. So the long and the short of it is that on project I'll try to paraphrase this if I can for Dan. There are two environmental requirements that are beyond the town. They're by the state. One is the Mass Endangered Species Act, MESA, MESA. The other one is the Mass Environmental Policy Act, MEPA, all capitals. Dan has had several meetings with these folks and recently reported to the working group that he feels we're in very good shape on the Mass Endangered Species Act, that we have pretty much given them our site drawings. We've given them, now remember, this is something that involves beyond our site, this so-called 2-to-1. We are going to use a little over 3 acres of land. We're actually going to end up giving them somewhere else along the DPW, somewhere in the vicinity of 7 acres of land that'll become part of conservation. And that is he has sketched that up with Goddard, taken it to them. They've had a meeting. They seem to be in line with that. It doesn't impact our schedule.
And do we have the town agency that will be acquiring the land and then hiring the third party to oversee it? Is that all in place?
It'll be the Conservation Commission. We've had preliminary discussions with them, and it seems to be best to just go right to the Conservation Commission, but it's not in 100% resolved. Let's leave it that way at the moment. But the discussion we have had that they would have no issue with taking it. And that would not involve someone from out of town, like another land conservation trust or something like that. It would be just stay internal to our town at this point in time. So
I thought the law required the conservation trust, no?
no. It could be multiple agents. The Conservation Commission has other land in town they have, and they can take another piece of land as well.
Okay.
Okay, the second one, which is the complicated one, the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act. As you remember, we have put in place Goddard Engineering as our agent, working between Dan, the town, Dan, and the state, and our committee, or whatever you want to call it, in the application for the Mass Environmental Policy Review. He's got a preliminary schedule, which I was hoping he'd be able to use tonight for us, but basically, if everything goes just right, that would be resolved somewhere in August. That's kind of what it is. It's like a 5 to 6 month period of time. And he, again, laid this out, I think, in an email, right, Matt? Okay. We may have to share the email with the committee. We should have done that, I guess, at this point.
I can do that.
But we were hoping that Dan would, be here to give you a report. So the apprehension is that we seem to have good information and a solid resolution with the endangered species. And if you guys remember, there was only one issue, that's the blanding turtle issue. The other one was a discussion about whether we had a plant on the site. There is no plant there, so we only have to resolve the blanding turtle issue. And that is being worked on. So he expects to get documents back from them and keep moving. The Environmental Policy Act is just a long drawn out process. So what can we do? So we think, we're not sure. We can reach out maybe to the town manager, which I think we've already done, try to find out if he can contact other people that maybe can help the process move along. We're not sure, but it's definitely the only issue that we have that would slow down our schedule. John Catlin has just told us he's on schedule, and this is the only concern. So the way I left it in a discussion with Dan Van Skelquick was, can at least we get a commitment that it will not be longer than August? In other words, if it's proposed for August, I'm concerned that it could become longer than August. How do we work with the agency? How do we work with others that maybe we can have a contact with to at least commit that it doesn't slow us any more than that?
When you say slow, does that mean you're suggesting that the bid couldn't go out until August or September?
Well, that's part of what we're trying to resolve is we need someone to give us an answer. And this is for the Vertex folks as well. One of the questions I posed was, does it even, because it's a review and because is it time sensitive that we can't do anything to that time? Or is there a possibility that we can continue doing what we're doing with a commitment that we'll complete the process, the review, during what we're doing, the bidding and other stuff that we're doing. Why do we have to wait all the way to the end for them to say, you're okay? So that's a question we're trying to get an answer to.
And who would supply that answer?
It's got to be state, I guess, Mass Environmental Policy Act people, and who represents them.
And that it will have an effect on our cost estimate too. We have escalation, and my engineer today, my cost estimator, and I'm sure most of us are aware of the disaster right now in the Middle East and the cost. He feels right now there may be some small material costs, but the real issue is the cost of fuel, transportation, and related work on the site. If it really jumps, if gas and diesel jumps to $5-6 a gallon, he feels it'll have an impact on our cost. The other issue too is that we do have escalation, and if we could bid, and I don't know whether we're going to be able to do this, and that's what Ken was explaining. If we could bid in June or May, we could start construction in the summer, which is a great time to start. But we don't take that risk, as I think Brian has said, that we're not going to hold a bid for 90 days waiting for somebody to give us a permission. So we need to bid close to wherever we think. Either we get an okay that, don't worry, August, we're going to approve it. We just got to go through the process, or we're going to have to wait till August to get that.
Okay, so what's
Puts
going
us in
on?
winter conditions too, by the way.
What's going on right at the moment is that Dan Van Schalkwyk is basically representing us in the process. So I ask Dan a question, he goes to Goddard, Goddard goes to the state. Goddard represents us. But we need more solid resolve that it doesn't go beyond August at this point in time. So the statement that I made to the town manager was, can we get a solid commitment that we will not go beyond August? We're not attempting to shortchange the review. We're going to do everything that's required. So we're not saying shortcuts, but we'd like to get some solid commitment beyond what we're hearing from Goddard as they talk to them. How do we talk to them? So that's a problem we have to continue to work on.
So would it be appropriate for the committee to write a letter to our state rep, state senator, town manager, and select board, urging the State Environmental Policy Act Review Committee to move expeditiously on this particular project, given, X, Y, and Z? That is, that does not seem like an unreasonable thing to do.
I take the opinion that nothing that we've been doing is unreasonable, but unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any solid statement there other than what Goddard has proposed in its schedule. So
yeah, if I can Ken hates it when Ken hates it when I interrupt a little bit, but I do want to point out August, as Brian and Matt will confirm here, if we bid after August, that means it's the bid process about 4 weeks, 6 weeks, plus getting closure on the contract. That'll put a critical part of this project in winter conditions, which is going to increase the cost of the project. Yeah. Winter conditions are, if we could bid in the summer, get it going, we have all our concrete work, we have our decks poured, we'd probably even get the building enclosed. Winter conditions will be a lot less of a problem. But if we bid in September, we're talking about resolving the bid sometime mid to late October, getting the project started November 1st, or that puts us really at risk for winter conditions. It doesn't mean they can't build it through the winter, but it's a lot more expensive.
I think that we know that already, but thank you for the comment, John.
My opinion would be is when we need to have these answers for when we're ready to go out for our last cost estimate. We own one through Catlin. We are also contracted to have another one to reconcile against it when we would know when we'd be going out to bid, but also whether or not, if we could go out to bid early, what the impacts could be. If something comes along and we're allowed to issue a building permit before acceptance from MEPA, What is our slush fund or kitty at that point in the event that there's modifications made or required when we already have a contractor under contract?
Just to make a comment on that, so there shouldn't be, MEP is not an agency that typically requires modifications.
Understood.
But we think we're going to cover that with the discussion that Dan has had. They've seen our drawings. So Dan has given MISA the civil engineer drawings. So they see the retention basin, they see the whole construction process, they see the land. So that seems to be resolved. MISA is this series of outreach that they do to the community, notifications, and a lot of other things that require time. And they just have a big workload, I guess. So anyway, I'm throwing it out there because that's kind of the summary that he would give. I don't think we have anything more than that. Otherwise, he probably would have sent it over to us.
Well, could the committee reach out to various constituencies in town? It's my understanding that the Environmental Policy Act was created in order to redress environmental justice issues, which are historic in nature. If we can get some constituencies in town to inform MEPA, or the people trying to enforce MEPA or review whatever it is MEPA feels like they should be reviewing, that the people in town do not see environmental justice concerns as a result of the construction of this building. In fact, a stronger argument is the construction of the building would redress environmental justice problems, not exacerbate them. So, I mean, to whom do you give that message?
Well, you can keep saying that. You've heard me, you and I have talked about it. We have Goddard, who's our representative.
But I think, I mean, what I'm hearing is there are kind of engineering or environmental concerns that are trying to be addressed, when I think it's fundamentally a political desire to see that no harm be caused by what's occurring. And I still haven't heard anyone identify a harm that's going to happen as a result of this building going up.
There's no harm intended. The process,
or not only intended, there's no harm that's going to occur.
We know that. The problem is the form itself literally takes days and days or weeks to fill the data out. Then they have to review the data, and they have to hire. It's a long data process of forms and applications, and they just do not waver from there.
Yeah. Ken, I worked for the Department of Conservation and Recreation, formerly Department of Environmental Management, for 20 years. And I can't tell you how many complaints we had about the MEPA review process. And there's very little you can do about it. I mean, you can try and you can do stuff like that. I'm just saying it's not something that's easily bulldozed over.
I agree.
If you can work and you'll pick up 3 days,
One comment that I would make about that is, and I'll forward the timeline email that Goddard sent to Dan Van Schalkwyk, in which he forwarded to me. But the timing that led to sort of the August ready date is based on average review times that Goddard has experienced from past similar submissions to the state. And so that's sort of how that end date was arrived at. To the extent that we can press to try to accelerate that, we can do that. But that's where those August dates came from. We'll see what we can do.
I want to ask Ellen a question. So Ellen, from your experience with what you've talked about MEPA, is that process, my real big question is MEPA an ongoing process that we go through simultaneous with everything that we're doing? Or how far do we wait for MEPA before we go through everything else we have to do? That's my concern. I want to be able to keep the project moving while MEPA is doing their review and not have it affect the schedule. That's kind of what I'm working towards.
Well, I did not work directly with projects that do MEPA. because they were handled through the Office of Executive Office of Environmental Affairs.
Yeah.
I just dealt with people who, we did a lot of construction and things like that, and it was always a bear when you were dealing with me. So I can't tell you that. There might be some people like, what's her name, who works for Devon's now. She used to
Yeah,
work.
Beth.
Pardon? Beth. Yes, Beth would probably be much more in tune with how MEPA works.
Right.
But I'll talk to you about some ideas, some things you might be able to do offline.
Okay. Yeah, Dan and Scott and I both talked about the idea of meeting with Devon's or meeting with Mass Development, who work with us constantly, and see if they had any tips as well. So,
Yeah, and Beth would be there. And again, she was in the middle of that kind of stuff.
yeah. Okay. Thank you. So that's what I've got for that. So if everyone's okay, we'll move on to the next item. We may have already covered it. It's the next cost estimate date from John.
It's the final date, end of April. He starts it around the 15th.
Okay.
It's a much more comprehensive one, and he's be working with drawings that are probably very close to 95%, maybe 100%.
All right. So that's a rough idea for Vertex as well. We'll get that. Next item on the agenda is, now this is actually important as well. So additional subcommittee updates, and I'm going to start in reverse order here. So there's a pre-qualification subcommittee that needs to start because we need to work with Vertex on pre-qualification. Would you like to recommend how you guys get started with Vertex or Vertex?
Yeah, we've worked with our procurement manager too to get her on board about this. I think the hesitation that we've done is just trying to figure out exactly what our schedule is going to be for bidding, as we don't want to put the pedal down and get this done and then have to shelf it for months after that. And so we try to thread the needle to pre-qualify as soon as we can, but to give ourselves enough runway for the bidding procurement window that we have. That being said, I think we are ready to at least send out an initial and have our kickoff meeting.
Okay.
And so we've been in touch with her. We'll have something sent out well before next meeting, and we'll have met by then.
So let's say within the next couple of weeks, you'll start
Correct.
everybody together.
Yeah, the first meeting is going to be an introductory kickoff, and then what we review is the RFQ that gets sent out that would be put out onto the central register. So once we have consensus with that, there's a window of when that gets advertised. We gather a lot of the statements of qualification, and that's where the big lift comes in, is when you review those and actually meet several subsequent times after that to go through your reviews of each individual sub and general contractor.
Okay, thank you. So that's, if I remind myself, it's Dave and Dennis that are on that subcommittee, I believe, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, whenever you reach out, Brian, that's fine, and we'll go from there. How often
Right.
do you think we'll meet, or how?
So, in all honesty, sometimes we're behind the 8 ball with our schedule, and we need to meet weekly. On something like this, I'd anticipate we would every other week, and some of which might just be a check-in, and some of them might be a little more in depth when we get to the actual grading of certain divisions, and we need to be on for an hour. But we try to schedule it and stretch it out so that it gives everyone enough time, but we're not making this a full-time job for anybody.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Part of that is also making the reference phone calls, which takes often some time to reach people and get that feedback. So that you may see particular value in that for some of your edge conditions, for people who might be like right on the edge of pre-qualifying or not.
Okay.
All right, so we'll go back to the top item here under subcommittees, which is grants, fundraising update, and that would be the CDBG and Compact IT grants. So Katie, are you available to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. So So we found out just before the select board meeting that we unfortunately did not get selected for the compact IT grant. That is unfortunate news. That was $170,000 towards the IT and AV for the multi-purpose room. We think we wrote a competitive grant, but I don't think that for what we needed, I don't know that we got any bonus points based on I believe the bonus points were offered for people who were making IT, infrastructure, like website security updates. So we wrote a competitive proposal, but we weren't in the bonus points category. So that's disappointing news, but I've been working identifying additional grants to apply for. We still have the Health Foundation of Central Mass out, as well as working on the CDBG grant with Ray Friedlander, the Economic and Community Development Manager, and then Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. Yeah. So we basically that, as most of you know, is a really detailed and involved in the supporting materials for CDBG, and that's the one that's the max of $950,000 for the upcoming year. And we've got all of our supporting documents in line. We're just trying to really narrow down what the actual request will be. We've been working with BABA, which is the Build America, Buy America requirements, as well as the certifying officers for prevailing wages and everything. We're getting that part worked out. And then are going to really further define what the topic will be. We've talked about steel, we've talked about mechanical, we've talked about a couple of different options. So I will update the group when I have the exact narrative that we'll go through.
Okay, thank you. I have to take a small break, so can Dennis and Katie run it for a couple minutes and I'll be back.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Okay,
So
did you want to do it? Or do you want me to? I don't have access to the.
Okay, I was just going to say, since I'm in the, all right, so that was the end of the grant and fundraising update. So I think that really brings us to the vendor invoice package, and I will turn it over to Vertex so that they can present and we can do a vote on that.
Everyone's muted, Katie.
That's me. I apologize. I did send a sharing request. Someone wants to provide me access with that.
Brian, I can also share apparently. So
Yeah, if you want to pull it up,
throw it up,
I can
do that.
I can talk through it.
Sure.
So for our monthly invoice package, and Katie, I know that you're pressed for time. Whenever you're back, we did receive an email from town accounting. I think we need to sit down with them one more time to kind of go through our budget. It may be best after our working group as well. That can be for another time. But for month ending February, we are recommending the invoices that we received to date for that. Those include invoices from ourselves as well as Catlin Architecture. Vertex is the design and development fees of $11,000. For Catlin Architecture, fees of $70,787, as well as reimbursables for $175. Those have been reviewed and approved for payment for a total of $81,962.00. Just in transparency, we did have a question from town accounting. I think what Vertex and what we'll be doing between now and next month is refreshing our entire budget as it is. We'll be implementing some of the savings that we're realizing right now. I think what the disconnect may be is the budget that we're showing in this invoice package needs to be a locked-in budget from what was approved at town meeting. And we're going to have separately our working total project budget that's going to be ebbing and flowing as we go through this design process and actually realizing what costs are going to be. The goal being that both of these are going to need to match up at the end when we get to our bidding phase. Um, so that'll be something that we'll work with the working group committee, but I just wanted to let the committee know. Um, so that's what's being recommended for payment this month. Packet was sent out to everybody via Katie. We do not have any math errors, I don't believe, this month, as I apologize for the one that we had last. So, and that was reissued as well for month ending in January.
Okay. Did everyone on the committee have a chance to look at the actual invoices that are attached to this and understand this is where we are? Would you like to bring them up? Maybe the OPM is easy. That's basically the monthly stipend that you guys have been projecting, I guess, at this point in time. And then John's invoice was getting him to 50% maybe on CDs.
Correct.
Excuse me.
I did have a question with town accounting about how reimbursables are being handled. I just want to make sure, and Katie, thank you for answering. I just wanted to make sure that reimbursables are being paid. However, it's not going to be a situation when we get to the end and a purchase order has not been extended. So I appreciate the answer with that, and I think we're all set at this point. We did review the contract to make sure the validity of any reimbursements are all set.
Yep. Okay, so this just to let people know the reimbursements are John's duplicating costs for the civil engineering plans and mailing and whatnot. That's taken care of.
And that was for the planning board submission.
Yes.
My understanding from accounting was that because they were added to the invoice, it doesn't create an issue. We did not use a PO for this contract. So we will be able to approve and pay out this way, but those reimbursables need to fall into another budget line in order to make Catlin's total budget not be over.
Understood.
Yep, got it. Okay. Anyone have a comment on the package for the VIP for this month? The total of basically 2 items plus reimbursables.
I put this page back up just because for purposes, if there was going to be a motion to, these have the invoice numbers on them and dates.
I got just a quick question on this. So today is the 19th. Is it typical that the invoices are for the end of the previous month? That's the way it typically will go?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'll accept the motion for the amount to pay the vendor package.
Anybody else? No? All right. I move that we approve the vendor invoice package of 2/28/2025 in the total amount of $81,962.
I'll second it. Any further discussion on the motion for 81,962? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. So Dennis, excuse me, Dennis,
Aye.
Connie,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Katie,
Aye.
and the chair says aye. So it's voted. Okay, that's that item. So now we have covered everything that was on the agenda. We have reached the point, but we have.
We haven't done FF&E. Did we skip that?
Oh, I thought you did it while I was off. I'm sorry. So we'll
No.
go back to the subcommittee update. Is there any subcommittee update on the FF&E portion of the work?
I skipped it because we didn't have an update. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So Brian, can I ask you, you mentioned earlier that we may want to look for the furniture sooner rather than later? Is that the?
What I was implying is that at the level of detail that we're at right now, we should start seeing some furniture plans and where things are going to go, and will allow us to go out to some potential vendors to get some initial quotes on it. Those initial quotes will give us an idea. Right now, we're going off of a square foot cost and past experience on other projects as to what our FF&E costs are going to be.
Yeah.
So I think it is a good time for that. And John, we'll work with you at the working group as to who's doing what and who we're reaching out to for that. I know we have a budgeted line item in there for interiors, and so we'll discuss that on Tuesday. But I think for the next building committee meeting, it would be good to have an answer on we'll call it financials on what we're thinking the FF&E package is, and then as it comes to the FF&E subcommittee, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that, decisions on aesthetics and economics are going to be done at that point, potentially with colors and finishes and things like that.
One thing to add to Brian's comments there is we'll do a kind of a layout of furnishings to give you an idea of what we're looking for. Like the idea that the multipurpose room might have like 125 armchairs and the tables to go with them. The lounge will have something, comfortable, seating. So and classroom seating. We'll give you a rough number and then we'll start running from there. And I think that'll give us a good start. The other thing to be aware of too, and it has a lot to do with this schedule, we usually get really heavy, and Brian can correct me on this if you like, or Matt, we usually get pretty heavy in the FF&E at the start of construction, because we want to make sure that by the time the construction might be 14, 16, 18 months, we want to make sure that furniture is in progress at the completion of that construction period. So we have a lot of time right now, but it goes quickly.
Okay. Okay, so we did have a note at the bottom of the agenda for a select board update, but I think we did that earlier in the meeting already. And, that went very smoothly. So at this point in time, we actually have the provision for public input. Not any of us are aware there's any public on the screen. And so I would just, it's not on the agenda, but I guess I would just ask if anyone on the committee has anything else they want to comment on while we're here tonight.
Ken, I do want to ask a question. I know it's kind of going back to the MIPA.
Yes.
So are we confident that the review is going to be favorable when we get it in August, or we still don't know what's going to happen with that review?
It'll be favorable. They're not in a position to deny a project. It's a process.
So is it too much of a gamble? We're not going out to bid early in spring as we wanted. We're identifying that possibly waiting till August is going to be too late. So do we kind of time it in late June, mid-June, late June? So the timing with the bid process, getting everything finalized. So right when everything's ready to go would be around the same time as we're getting the review back. And if it comes back early, we're ready to go. And that would, I think, still get us time to get in before the winter so we can, have the footings and all the first part of the work done before the winter. Is that too
Yes.
much of a gamble, or would it?
No, I think we should be clarifying that in the next few days or the next week. And it shouldn't be a gamble for us. We should be getting it clarified. So the other step that I didn't mention is that we need to have a discussion with it. John, hold off on this one, John, until I finish. We will have an internal discussion with the building department and the planning department also regarding these issues. So I'm going to submit probably tomorrow the stamped site plans and the drainage report and whatnot for a planning board meeting to be set up. But they should also be able to help us and give us information if it will slow their process down at all. So in other words, will they be willing to go through the planning board will do it. The planning board will go through their review and we'll come out of that. But we need to talk to them about, how MIPA connects with the building permit, for instance, and the review of that. So there's a bunch of things going on at the same time. But I agree with you, Linda. We just need to nail it down. We're trying not to have it change our schedule by a lot. We should be ready to do whatever we can as soon as we get that review complete.
Do the powers that be, and to some extent, this is because the select board obviously was rather neutral and did not have significant concerns. But do the powers that be understand that there are significant costs associated with MIPA not moving in a timely way? That is, it's not a neutral thing as far as the town of Ayer, the budget, or the people who live here. It has substantial costs to us if they fail to move in a timely way. Who do we tell that to?
Well, I can tell you that I was on the phone twice with Dan Van Skelwick talking to the representatives from the state about all these same kind of comments, and it doesn't move them. They've heard it so many times before from so many different projects. They've basically heard it all, and they have a process. So I don't feel encouraged by that. And I can tell you right now that there's no one who knows more about it than this group that's meeting right now. And I mean, as far as anyone in town on another board or any other representatives, it's really up to the consultant to get through to MIPA and find a crack in the system, I guess, but there may not be one. I think I said the thing I'm trying to determine is that can we get a commitment that it will not go beyond August? If we have that commitment, then we can schedule all our work and just keep going, knowing that we'll be done by then. So in the meantime, we still have to have more conversations to tighten that up.
But I don't think we can afford to risk losing an entire construction season.
We're not going to do that, no matter what.
So Ken, I think the question, back to Linda's question, right, is can everything kind of happen concurrently, right? Can we go out to bid? Can we do all these things? And then we know in August, we're 100% confident that we get, we got the green light. So
I don't think you can ever be 100% confident about MIPA.
That's right.
I'm just telling you all.
All right. Well, that's important information.
Yep. You can't be 100% confident.
Okay.
But you have to.
I mean, it looks great and everything, and there shouldn't be any reason why. But they're not generally motivated to meet your timeline.
Correct.
I guess I'll bring up a question. Maybe Brian can help us out here too. Bring up the question. Assuming, can they actually deep six the project? Can they prevent it from going ahead?
No.
Do they have? So what I'm getting at is why couldn't we bid this June, July or let's say end of July, beginning of August. So our start date will be September 1st.
Right. Then I think that's what we're looking into. I think
that's a positive.
Yes.
The questions that we've asked internally is we have some experience with MIPA with other colleagues too. And I think this goes to the building commissioner and how the process is going to work out is can a building or foundation or any type of permits be issued without a full approval from MIPA? And if not, okay, can we go through a bidding process and award a contract to a contractor? And with the specifications, let them know that shovels in the ground can't happen till X amount of time and give yourself a window of procurement for long lead items, get a lot of the administrative stuff taken care of, knowing that we've got this hurdle or this administrative checkbox that needs to get done in the next 2 months. And so I think, Ken, it's the right strategy while we're waiting on these answers, though, is seeing if we can get a firm date on or a commitment on to when things are going to get done. And then we can work backwards or work around that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at this point in time, I'm going to speculate here. Ellen is correct. There's no 100% assurance. There's no 100% assurance that they said the schedule will be August and it doesn't slip. But in our end of the deal, I would agree with Brian Forbes that we need to set up our schedule now, what we want to do. And if we want to bid July 15th or July 1st, whatever it is, I think we should just go ahead and do that, get ready for that point. Or maybe it's let's call it a date, July 15th, something like that, and do what we have to do to get bid by around July 15th. Then it's going to take time to, review the bids and so forth and so on and, make a decision. It would match up with the projected MIPA completion. And then if it changes, we'll have to have a discussion with, like you mentioned, Brian,
Mhm.
give them a window, something like that. But I think it will be important to our committee to set a date and do it.
Yeah, and also just one little tidbit. I think someone needs to have a conversation with Rep. Senna and give him this
Absolutely. We're going to do
and
that.
all this
Yep.
information because he needs to have this information in the back of his mind, right?
There's no question we were going to do that right from the get-go. I brought it up to
Yeah.
Robert a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. He
Yeah.
was supposed to set up a meeting with both of them. So we're going to do that. The point is, and Ellen is correct, that may not have anything to do with anybody because everyone else has done it as well. Believe me, people have gone through MIPA way many times, have tried everything they can to get through MIPA. So it's a terrible situation that was set up. I can't comment on it politically. So let's let it go. It's a process we have to go
Yeah,
through.
and I'm not saying not to do everything you can do.
No, we all
I'm
agree we
just
have to do
saying,
it. Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
And do we think that having a petition signed by the residents of Ayer or having a
Doesn't-
public letter written to
Doesn't do a thing.
MEPA,
no,
Doesn't do a thing.
no.
Imagine,
why is that? Why is that not an appropriate avenue to pursue if your if your state agencies are not fulfilling public policy goals?
Well, Dennis, it's not that they're not fulfilling
They're doing
their
this-
goals. They are fulfilling their process. And
Yeah.
you don't like the timing of their process. That doesn't mean they're not doing their job. So, I mean,
Well, I
and
mean,
you
we can
don't want
respect,
to alienate them either.
we can
Exactly.
respectfully disagree about that.
no, potentially the worst thing we could do was intimidate them. That would be probably the worst mistake we could possibly make.
Yeah.
The idea is to just find the appropriate method to go through it and try to get a solid commitment.
Mhm.
Because everyone who's gone through this has tried every technique they can. And we're way late in the game. They've been doing this for 25 or 30 years, whatever it is. So-
What we want to do is break ground in in September, so we avoid winter conditions. Sounds like there's a real possibility we could do that. And I think we should table this as we move along. We'll get better information, but we can discuss this till midnight, I tell you.
Exactly. But would it be smart for us to think about setting a timetable for ourselves in the next week or two that say, look, no matter what, we're going to try to bid it at a certain date.
Yes.
We have to put a date and work backwards for Vertex to do all the work that's required to get to the bidding.
Mhm.
So let's
Yes,
think
I would
about that.
agree.
So think about the fact that we need to set up a solid date for
Mhm.
bidding, and we'll go on from there.
And I think the sooner the better. I
I
mean,
agree.
the earlier the date, the better, because August becomes September and,
Mhm.
September becomes October and
Yeah,
We'll
exactly.
take a look at the Gantt chart just to make sure that the dominoes that need to fall in a particular order can line up as as closely to our optimum timeline as they can. But we also want to make sure that as part of that, we're sort of reading the tea leaves with what those tell us about where our risk exposure is financially. And we'll have that sort of layer to the discussion as well, because we don't want to get in a position where there's a request for additional funds because we've held a contractor's bid too long. It's something we talked about sort of at the outset of the meeting. So there's the timing and there's the potential for financial risk that we want to make sure that those two assessments are in sync.
Got it. All right, so that brings us to scheduling the next meeting and so forth. So do we want to wait another month is the question, or would you want to do it sooner because we have so much to get done here?
I don't think we can wait a month because we have to go back to the kitchen, which we need to finalize by the end of this month. So I think we need a meeting before the end of the month.
Okay, so today's the 19th, so what if we met 2 weeks from tonight would be April 2nd? That's the end,
sounds good.
Does that work with John's timeline to get the modifications?
Well, we're not making any changes. We're just trying to get answers for the costs. And we've reached out to we're reaching out to a third kitchen supplier to get numbers. And I think, did I hear right that maybe Katie and David are going to be visiting the restaurant show? When's that going to be?
April 25th and 26th, I think.
Oh, that's pretty far out, but that's going to be a worthwhile visit, by the way. Here's what we'll do is we're working right now. We reached out to 2 vendors. We're reaching out to a third that Ken gave us yesterday. And we're going to get an answer back from somebody. We're looking for ballpark. We're actually going online and looking up the equipment ourselves and trying to get numbers. And David, if you, right now, the only commercial induction stove we found is a single oven. I think.
Well, that'll have, if that's all we can get, then that's what we'll have to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the way this is going to go, we have a working group meeting next Tuesday. We're going to work with Dave and Katie at the working group as well to try to come up with some solid answers on the kitchen. And then, but this committee has to meet as well for not just, so I think we should probably meet in 2 weeks, April 2nd, and see if we can make sure Dan Vince-Kelquith gives us a solid update on the MIPA and MISA stuff. And then by then resolve the kitchen, I hope, and go from there. What does everyone think about that?
No, I agree. I think meeting in 2 weeks, I think is, I mean, we need to stay on top of this.
Okay, so we've been meeting at 4:30. Is that still okay for everybody?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Are we going to have another meeting in later in the month as well?
Yes. Yeah, so you mean in April?
Yes.
So the next step, one after that would probably be the 16th, another 2 weeks after that.
That would be the third Thursday, yeah, is the 16th.
Yeah, so if you want, we can book those 2 now and have Katie put the notices out for the committee.
Okay.
Okay.
We have the 16th also lands in the intervening week between 2 of our working group meetings. That actually might be a good
That's good. Yep.
good timing.
So does the group that's on tonight want to resolve that we meet 2 weeks from now and then a month from now?
Okay.
Okay.
Fine, yep.
Okay. All right, so the next scheduled meeting for this board will be April 2nd at 4:30. The building committee. And then the following meeting will be April 16th at 4:30. And Katie, I'll get a hold of Katie and we'll put together, she'll put together an agenda and so forth. But looks like the work of the committee is going to concentrate on a couple of open items, MIPA and the kitchen. At this point in time.
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
Okie dokie.
All right, Dennis, you good? Everyone's good?
Yep.
Bonnie? All right,
Good.
so,
Yep.
so we'll adjourn the meeting. What time is it? Holy mackerel, 6:30. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Okay, thank you very much, guys.